Aloha everybody, Gabe here from the Hawaii Institute of Self-Reliance, His Survival. Welcome back, mahalo for watching. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make chocolate from the tree to a chocolate bar on the homestead. There's 3 different varieties that I have right here. This is a cacao tree, this is one variety. This is the Aztec, ancient Mayan Aztec variety. You can tell it's very bumpy and not very domesticated, right? And this is the Hershey's variety. This is what your Hershey's is made out of, your standard Hershey's chocolate. And this is old school, but this is even older, right? And how you tell that the pod is ready, you can shake it, right? And there's a rattle, you can hear the beans inside. And then if it was on the tree and I'm not sure, I can scrape the skin, right? Just scrape the skin and there's no green, right? That's a good indication that it's ready to pick. Also the development of the ridges, and each variety is different. You just have to know your variety. So don't go away and learn how to make chocolate. Here is some pods on the tree. The leaf, the bark, the tree. Here's some smaller ones. Here's a better example. Some smaller developing cacao pods. Here's another variety. Here we have vanilla and cacao. This vanilla vine is growing on a cacao tree. Here's some vanilla beans. Yes, we grow our own vanilla and cacao. Busted that one up good. Okay, so what we're doing here is I'm breaking them open and he's putting the beans in the cooler to ferment. And we ferment these for about 5 days, keep it at about 120 degrees. And what you're looking for is just the bean, and you don't want any grit or any sand or anything, or any of that part of it, or any of the rind. So you don't want any of this, you don't want any of that, and you don't want the seeds to be sprouted. I don't think we have any sprouted ones here, so I won't be able to show you what a sprouted seed looks like, but it's fairly obvious what a sprouted seed looks like, and you just don't want any of them in the container. So this is what the sprouted beans look like. I actually did find some. They are right there, they're sprouted. And you don't want them in the fermentation container. And you don't want any of the rind, you don't want any of this. All of that goes back on the tree. So we're getting everything that we don't want in here out of here. And this will ferment for about 5 days at about 120 degrees, and you might have to help it get hot. So I keep it in this cooler, and there you go.
And we're going to put some of this into that and get the thing fermenting. This is still cold and inactive, right? So I can drain this one more time this afternoon before I put this in there, and this will be fizzing and going off pretty good by that time. And there's vinegar with the mother in there, you know, live vinegar bacteria and probiotic stuff and some yeast.
And then you'll add that in after we get the juice that we want to drink right now.
Yeah.
So this is basically yeast to start the fermentation. And I'm going to show you that we're going to collect some of the juice. This is very rare, extremely rare, that you would actually get to see cacao juice from the bean. That's good, that's good, that's good. Oh. There you go. Cacao juice. Let's test her out. Oh my goodness. It's like drinking a Jolly Rancher. So good. Oh yeah. At the bottom of the cooler, where we're going to put the seeds, you want something like this so you can collect the juice from the beans, the white part that comes off the beans. Here are some beans that have been fermenting for about 3 days. Now I want to mention this is a dry fermentation. They have a nice sweet vinegar smell. It's not a dirty sock kind of funky smell. It's actually pleasant for a vinegar smell. And I want to mention, like I said, it is a dry fermentation. Now when you collect the juice, the first day or two is good, but then you want to add, on the second day, you want to add some yeast and a little bit of vinegar to start the fermentation process. But that's after you drain the juice, because the juice is good without being fermented. Of course you can ferment it, and you can make like a cacao juice wine, which is really good. So now what you want to do is you want to ferment these beans for 5 days total. If you go over 5 days, they could get kind of funky. Of course, you don't want any bugs. And like I said, it's a dry fermentation. You drain it every day. You mix it twice a day. And you want to keep it above 104 degrees. And there's a little trick by adding hot water bottles inside here. There's a hot water bottle buried in here. And that will keep it warm. And then these coolers will keep it warm. So I'm going to shut this lid to keep the heat up, to keep the fermentation going. This has been laying out for about 2 days. It's going to start to dry, and the pulp has rotted off. You can see that it's kind of rotting off. It's come off of it. Now, these beans took about 6 days to ferment, and then when the temperature started to drop, that's when you lay them out to dry, and the flavor or the smell of the flavor is like good, a good vinegar kind of smell, not so sour sock smell, right? These have been drying, and they're not quite done, but they're close. And they smell pretty good, like a nice sweet vinegar smell, not too bad. And don't worry about if they stink, because roasting them will take out some of the flavor if your beans don't smell so good. In this step, we are separating the inside of the bean from the outer shell, the outer parchment or chafe. Here, let's find one. Yeah, this is easier to crack. You see the inside, just the nibs. This is before roasting, and then you roast them after you separate this part from the innard, right, of the bean. And I'll show you the setup with a champion juicer and a fan. Beans go in the champion juicer right in here, no screen, and come out the bottom. Fan is blowing here. Comes out the bottom right here. The fan blows, separates parchment from the bean. There you go. Simple, easy, effective, cheap way to do it. Not that labor intensive. You could set up other rigs, and it just takes time to build it and maintain it. And you know, if you're just a homestead and you're not doing a whole lot of production, this works just fine. There you go.
See just a little bit of smoke starting to rise off of there. About time to turn that temperature down. You see it's starting to get a dark color to it, and you can smell it.
And a convection oven would work a lot better, but this is just your typical kitchen oven. And you could use probably a coffee roaster, right? And then some people will roast the beans whole or roast them as nibs, which we're doing right now. I believe roasting as nibs is better, more surface area, and I believe you get more of an even roast if you roast the nibs and not roast the beans. You make nibs and then you roast the nibs, because the nibs are little pieces of bean. You use a champion juicer to make nibs, and also you can make the liqueur with the champion juicer. As you can see, I'm right here. I've got the liqueur, and then this is the waste that I could add back in. And this is the nibs that I'm putting in there. I started out with 5.5 pounds of nibs and 1 vanilla bean, 4 ounces of cacao butter, and about 4 grams of soy lecithin. And I kind of heat it up to activate the vanilla bean and to melt the cacao butter. So I'm going to show you how I do this. It's going to get loud because a juicer is loud. So this is the chocolate liqueur. I'm putting it in the melanger wet stone grinder. This is the brand. This is what it looks like. This is the point where you'll add the sugar after you add the liqueur, and that infuses the sugar with the liqueur. And then you could pour about 12 hours after this has been running. Here's the melanger. I'm going to add some sugar, and you slowly add sugar to infuse the sugar with the liqueur. For 5.5 pounds of liqueur, you put in 2.5 pounds of sugar, which will make a 70% cacao chocolate bar. And then you let this run for 12 hours, or if you want really smooth chocolate, let it run for a little bit more. Or you could take your sugar, right, we're using cane sugar, and then grind it in a coffee grinder, and it will infuse with the liqueur better. And then at that point, you want to pour. Oh, I didn't show adding the sugar. Oh no, I did. That's right. Okay, so where are we at? What's the temperature?
94.8.
94.8, so
95.
95. Okay, so it's ready to add the seed, and this is one method of tempering chocolate, because this has been running and the sugar has been infused, and we got some cacao butter that he's placing in there, and this will start the process of aligning the crystals so we can temper the chocolate. You just got to make sure that you stir it up really well. You know, you got to stir it and make sure the seed is in there completely, and that the temperature is 95. You don't want to go any lower, and you don't necessarily want to go any higher, because if it drops down below 95, you might have to bring it back up to 105 to break the crystals starting to temper. So he's going to mix this up, take out the stone, and we're about to pour.
Well, and that's not exactly right.
Oh, okay. I'm not exactly right. Okay.
Because we do want it to go below 95.
Well, I'm just saying, before you put the seed in.
Oh, well, yeah.
Before you put the seed in.
Now we want it to go lower.
Now you're going to drop it, but you're going to mix it, and then the crystals are going to start to align. This is my buddy Gary. He's the chocolatier.
Was that on film?
Yeah, we're on right now.
Sorry.
No, because this is informational, and you know, I'm just like an apprentice. So
it's going to go down to about 93, and that's the time we're going to start pouring. 93, 92.
okay, making sure you get 0 water in there. You want to stir it up real good with the seed in there.
Melt all that stuff in.
Melt the stuff together, because this is like the most important part. You have to start all over if you mess up the tempering, and it is not the easiest. It's definitely alchemy. There's no true science really necessarily behind this. It's kind of interesting. Okay, I've trimmed some of the bars. They're out of the mold. I trimmed them with the knife. There's just a little excess on the side. Not a big deal. Now, we're going to do this kind of the old school way with a piece of tin foil. Willy Wonka. There you go. Bar of chocolate. Homegrown, homemade, homestead chocolate. That's how we make chocolate. Now I'm just an apprentice. My buddy Gary, he's been doing it a lot longer than I, and I'm learning from him. And there's 7 steps to making chocolate, roughly. And I think the most important or the most difficult would have to be, the fermenting and the tempering, right? Because the fermenting, you want to draw out all that purple and or as much as possible. And the tempering is kind of tricky. You want it to be solid, right? And not flexible, but you want to have a good break. Here's you hear that? That snap? That's what you want. This is good tempered chocolate. And sometimes it can be hard because it will bloom, but blooming doesn't really necessarily affect the taste too much. It's just the look of it and how well it held the temper. So I'm gonna try it. Oh yeah, that's some good stuff. There you go, chocolate, homestead, made in Hawaii. I'm gonna wrap this video up right here. I'm gonna put a link in the description box where if you want to, you could donate and get some chocolate, and I'll put a link in the description box for that. And I'm here to answer any of your questions. Thank you for the like. Thank you for the subscription. Make sure you hit the bell symbol to get notification for when I upload a video. And until next time, aloha! Really good stuff. Oh yes. Just keep me awake. Keep you going for a long time. This is definitely one of the ultimate survival foods. Good old chocolate.